Welcome to our Team IDGO2 Sound Solutions. We're excited and delighted to be here with you. My name is Joe Wilkins, and I'm one of our senior judges. We also have with us Gail, David, and Daniel, and we will be listening intently, and we'll have some Q&A and some coaching and some feedback at the end of our time with you. And so I just have a few kind of notices to kind of set us up for 25 minutes that you will have to present to us. And so we want to, first of all, understand that this is part of the competition, that you will be taking on a fictional business identity and assigning a fictional business identity to us as judges. And I believe you have us as the board of directors of Haas Avocado Board. And we want to make sure that everyone knows who you are when you begin your presentation. We want to be clear that you have 25 minutes plus or minus a few seconds in terms of the presentation to really describe the legal, financial, and ethical dimensions of the problem, and to recommend a solution that passes muster on all three counts. And so we're looking for those legal, financial, and ethical dimensions. And so during your presentation, there will be no interruptions. We'll be asking questions afterwards. When you finish, we'll have about 10 to 15 minutes to Q&A, and we will stay in character. So we'll be asking questions as the board of directors, and you will be responding as consultants for Sound Solutions. And then after that, we'll conclude that and then have some outside feedback and coaching and mentorship and advice from there on. So any questions before we get started? Okay, so with that, I'm going to start the clock at 11:05. And so welcome, Sound Solutions.
Great. Hi, we are Sound Solutions. Our team consists of Che, Jamie, Susie, Teresa, and me, Melissa. Today, we're meeting with you, Haas Avocado Board, to dissect the implications of viral marketing in sustainable produce. Based in California, your board is a catalyst in connecting the avocado supply chain by being uniquely positioned to support producers, retailers, health professionals, and consumers, all in different ways. You say that each player in the supply chain plays a part in your goal of making avocados the #1 consumed fruit in the US by 2025. But we're here to discuss concerns with your mission and how we can help you to reach your goals and more. The current production of avocados in Central America touch on multiple sustainable development goals, with the most significant issues falling under goals 12 and 15. Ensuring sustainable consumption and production patterns, and protecting, restoring, and promoting sustainable use of terrestrial ecosystems, sustainably managing forests, combating deforestation, and halting and reversing land degradation, and halting biodiversity loss.
Oops. If you follow any food blogs or online trends, you may notice an increase in health-related superfood ingredients over the past few years. A quick search of these hashtags, as you see on the top right, produced a few examples of nutritious and diet-friendly meals. And based on our knowledge of foods, we recognize that a few of these commonly sought after superfoods have real consequences when they're consumed in abundance. Specifically today, we wanted to discuss the demand of avocados and the effect on the nations from which they are extracted. So avocados is an example of some of these superfood ingredients that are trending. We want to start by reminding you the rich history of avocados. In 1915, a group of California farmers realized that avocados weren't appealing to the typical American. With the traditional name of aguacate, or the American pseudonym alligator pear, if you didn't know, farmers decided to rename the fruit to avocado, hoping to increase sales. Still, our lack of awareness on the fruit slowed growth for several generations. Using data from the US Department of Agriculture, we can see imported and total supply figures on this chart. With data starting in the 80s, there was a low-fat diet trend, adding to the slow adoption of the high-fat fruit, with an average of 3,500 metric tons being imported into the US. It wasn't until 1992 when California farmers got together with the goal of making the fruit the most popular fruit in America and consuming an everyday diet, that avocado consumption began to grow. This culminated to a large effort of making guacamole as the perfect snack for the Super Bowl, utilizing athletes and celebrities to promote guac and developing a mascot, Mr. Ripe Guy, as you may remember. This started public interest in the fruit, and now the US was importing 27,000 tons. The next milestone for avocado importation can be attributed to a legal change. The lift of an 83-year-old ban in Mexican avocados contributed to another doubling of the annual import of fruit to 60,000 tons. As you know, the Haas Avocado Board was established in 2002 with the goal of making the avocado the most popular fruit, as we established in the beginning of our presentation. Simultaneously, avocado toast was introduced first by a cafe in New York City and began to become popularized by actresses and actors like Gwyneth Paltrow, including this fruit in their recipes and recipe books and as part of their regular diet. This tripled import numbers. In the 2010s, avocados became a status symbol for affluence as well as a meme. This popular meme of Meryl Streep and avocados became viral after she and other celebrities publicized their hand injuries in handling the fruit. You may recall this as well. This tripled the import figure of avocados once again. Today, we are importing at least double the previous figure at 1.1 million tons. As I've walked through this timeline, we can attribute this growth in consumption to the viral trends in foods, such as popularization of low-carb diets and no-meat trends. Last year, we peaked at avocado consumption in May 2020.
At this point, you must be wondering, where are all the consumers getting all of these avocados from? According to the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations, avocado production has grown rapidly in the past decade, with the American production alone growing at 7.2% year over year. In 2019, more than 7.3 million tons of avocado was produced across the world, with more than 60% of these produced in the Americas. The majority of these came from 4 countries, including Mexico, the Dominican Republic, Peru, and Colombia. Moreover, the amount of avocado production has only gone up ever since. For our presentation, we would like to focus on Mexico for a few specific reasons. First of all, Mexico produced 31% of world supply of avocado, more than any other country in the world. Secondly, Mexico is one of the major trading partners with the United States, with the Mexican agriculture sector as one of the largest industry that crosses the US border. In 2019, Mexico agriculture imported roughly $26 billion, and almost 1/5 of that is avocado. This should not be surprising, as Mexico supplies roughly 80% of all US avocado consumption. Due to its high production yield and dollar value, the avocado industry has created many social, environmental, and economic issues, which leads us to the next point, which is what are the issues?
Thank you, Che. Now let's dive into the problems facing the avocado industry. As was mentioned previously, the rise in the popularity of avocados over the last few years and the high price of the crop in Mexico have led to a scramble to grow more avocados by any means possible. This has resulted in significant deforestation, water overconsumption, and the rise of violence in the avocado growing regions of Mexico that most customers are not even aware of as they eat their morning avocado toast. On the business side, the demand in the US has exploded with the recent popularization of the fruit. While avocados were once seen as an unhealthy, fatty food, now they are a key part of many food diets and trends for healthy eating. The popularization has also happened due to the rise in rapid information sharing of the last decade, something you know well as media and PR impressions are some of your important performance measures. This has all resulted in the average American's yearly consumption increasing from 2 pounds per person in 2000 to 8 pounds per person in 2018. For the producer, the high price of avocados has motivated many farmers and landowners to convert their crops or forests to avocado orchards. Avocados have even been nicknamed green gold in Mexico because of the profit margins compared to other crops and the year-over-year increases in demand from the United States. Moving into the legal dimensions, I would like to point out how laws have impacted the consumer side first. So like Jamie mentioned, the US took away a ban on Mexican avocados in 1997. And since then, there's been a fourfold increase in the number of Mexican avocados coming into the United States. This rapid growth has led to unsustainable and unethical practices of deforestation and water overconsumption. And it is most pronounced in the state of Michoacan, which is the region supplying the majority of the avocados we consume in the US. The role of governments is a major mechanism to curtail the harms caused by unchecked growth. But unfortunately, the Mexican government has been unwilling or unable to take significant action. Looking at the actions they have taken, the first one is an incentive to grow more. So the Mexican government has offered $60 per hectare through the Ministry of Agriculture to encourage landowners to convert existing farmland to avocado production. This, of course, is encouraging more deforestation in the region. And it's even countered by another incentive that's trying to stop deforestation. So within Michoacan, there's the Monarch Butterfly Biosphere Reserve, which is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. And it is the winter habitat of a billion butterflies from the US and Canada. The reserve is trying to incentivize landowners within its bounds to not convert their forest to farmland, but unfortunately, they only can offer half as much as the Ministry of Agriculture. The government has tried to stop deforestation in a different way, and they've done that by stopping land use change permits. So these are permits that would allow someone to take forest land and turn it into agriculture land. And they have not issued any of these since 2013. But 97% of inspections result in illegal findings of land use. And there are no punishments. So there are no consequences and deforestation continues. Beyond those policies, there are no laws or standards monitoring the industry. And this lack of oversight and consequences paired with weak institutions in this rural region, as well as other rural avocado producing regions in Mexico, has led to unsustainable practices and has opened the door to exploitation of the avocado industry by drug cartels. The lack of legal mechanisms means there is an opportunity for change on the customer and buyer side. Right now, there is little awareness of the harms within the industry, but a change to that could really have a significant impact. Moving on to what is actually happening in Mexico due to this business and legal landscape. In Michoacan, the avocado industry is contributing to 30 to 40% of deforestation, which comes out to be 6,000 to 8,000 hectares per year. Right now, there's about 150,000 hectares of avocado orchard in Michoacan, which again is significantly the largest avocado producing region within Mexico. Deforestation is happening because landowners convert their existing farmland to avocados. It's also happening through significant illegal logging of alpine forests. And it's also happening with farmers who already have avocado orchards clearing out everything to allow maximum sunlight to reach the avocado trees. Deforestation is a threat to local communities because it's eliminating a natural resource of the region, which is fir and pine trees. It's actually also contributing to changing weather patterns as massive amounts of the forest are going away. It is, of course, decreasing biodiversity, and Mexico has, I think, about 1/3 of all the biodiversity of Mexico can be found in Mexico. So by eliminating many different kinds of plants, it's taking away significant biodiversity. And it's also causing soil degradation as well. Soil degradation to the point that there is now a significant increase in flooding due to erosion and is actually causing fatalities. Avocado trees are also less efficient at cycling CO2 than the trees that they are replacing. And then, of course, going back to the monarch butterfly, destabilization of their habitat could lead to destabilization of the food chain for all of North America and have significant impacts on food access. Moving on to water overconsumption. This is another impact along with deforestation because avocados require twice as much water as a dense pine and fir forest. So there will be about 1/3 of the trees as a pine forest, and those trees will consume twice as much. And a crazy statistic is one avocado fruit is actually going to have consumed 60 to 70 gallons of water for that one piece of fruit. And so what this means is that the region of Michoacan is, they're sort of emptying their water sources. And it means that aquifers are not getting replenished. There are caves that are opening up underneath the region, and it's leading to significant seismic activity. And it is also threatening the water supply of Mexico City because this region is a source of water for Mexico City. Then cartel violence is the third impact here. So in addition to the environmental issues, there are 12 drug cartels operating in the region, and they are using avocado farming as a diversified revenue source. The cartels are profiting from avocados by illegally logging, also by forcing labor, so making people work for them for free, and then by charging protection fees. So farmers' land won't be damaged or burned if you pay $250 per hectare. The kidnapping and killing of avocados is also unfortunately quite common. This has actually caused some towns to hire civilian police to protect them because the government is not able to. And overall, that has led to economic and personal harms to the farmers and their communities. These harms are allowing Americans to benefit from year-round availability of avocados, while before it was only a seasonal fruit from California. There are also benefits to some of the farmers and communities in an impoverished region in Mexico, and the employment of thousands within the industry, keeping individuals away from the drug trade or from maybe even trying to immigrate to the United States. These benefits are coming at the cost of significant human and environmental harm at the point of origin that are not justified. These harms pose a business threat to future avocado popularity and production, and HAB is in a unique place in the industry to address these unethical and unsustainable practices at the producer level and generate needed customer upstream demand for change. Now I will hand things over to Susie to talk about our recommended solutions on how HAB can affect change in the industry.
Great, thank you, Teresa. Now that we've discussed the issues in depth, we'll share our recommended solutions to support both producers in phase 1 and consumers in phase 2 that you see here. We'll kick off with phase 1, which is focused on the producer, which in this case is the farmer. So to start, please meet Carlos. Carlos Martinez is a proud third-generation avocado farmer whose 6-acre grove can produce 50 tons of Hass avocados in a good year.
He struggled with wanting to embrace sustainable farming practices to preserve his land so he can pass it on to his children, but he doesn't know where to start or what sources he can trust. The Haas Avocado Board, or HAB, has an opportunity to support farmers like Carlos with our farmer-focused solution recommendations. The first step is to expand the general support resources and research that you're already providing and just tailoring this for farmers. You're already funding a ton of great research, but it would be more valuable to package up the relevant information for farmers so that they can have a trustworthy source of research and resources to rely on when it comes to best practices for sustainably growing their Haas avocados. The second step is to help farmers take action and implement these best practices so they can then qualify for certificate programs such as the Rainforest Alliance or Equal Exchange Fair Trade. HAB could start by hiring a certificate qualification lead to support farmers through the process. Specifically diving into the Rainforest Alliance, their mission is to conserve biodiversity and ensure sustainable livelihoods by transforming land use practices, business practices, and then ultimately consumer behavior. The Rainforest Alliance certificate has been viewed as one of the best certificates, as it specifically requires farmers to address both deforestation and water conservation concerns, which are some of the biggest challenges that you heard about before. This will help certified farmers stand out from the rest based on their commitment to sustainable practices, and it will help them get a better price for their avocados. One thing to note, research shows that the increased profits greatly outweigh the initial cost to get certified, but we do realize there is a high initial cost to pay up front, and this may be a difficult barrier for farmers like Carlos. So the cost of the certificate program, they can vary depending on how many updates need to be made to the machinery or whether new practices need to be implemented. But this is where our third initiative comes in to help support farmers financially through the process. So as you can see, our third initiative is to partner with Kiva to provide microloans to farmers that are seeking these certificates. Kiva is an online crowdfunding platform connecting lenders to entrepreneurs such as Carlos to provide no-interest microloans, and it's successfully been used by farmers around the world. Initially, we recommend that HAB start by using their social media and influence channels to evangelize the Haas avocado farmers in Mexico that are applying for these Kiva microloans to get these certificates. And then after an initial trial period, we recommend that HAB could even take a bigger step to become a field partner with Kiva and commit to funding a small percentage of each loan to further support this community. Lastly, our recommendation would not be complete without thinking through how to connect farmers with the consumers by promoting transparent supply chains. To do this, we recommend that HAB partner with IBESCC 360, which is a software as a service platform that uses blockchain to help streamline supply chains. The company IBESCC 360 has had great success with coffee beans and cotton, but has not yet applied these concepts to the avocado supply chain, which could be a great opportunity for a partnership. So we recommend reaching out to IBESCC 360 to kick off a pilot program for Haas avocados to ensure that farmers are paid directly, which will hopefully deter cartels, and will also enable end consumers to gain a better understanding of where their food is coming from. So this transitions to phase 2 of our approach, which is focused on the consumer and building upon HAB's mission. Instead of just making sure avocados are America's #1 fruit, we recommend pivoting to focus on making avocado America's most sustainable fruit. And to do this, we recommend building upon your current grassroots marketing campaign with a fully integrated full funnel marketing campaign to build awareness of the current avocado supply chain and how HAB is working to make it more sustainable. Someone like Lindsay, for example, an American avocado shopper. She would start her journey by seeing HAB ads on TV. She'd see out-of-home billboards and digital placements educating her on HAB's new mission and the sustainable supply chain. She would then log on to her social media sites like Instagram and TikTok to find her favorite health and wellness influencers launching a #AvocadosForEarth challenge brought to you by HAB. She's encouraged to share how she's making the world a more sustainable place, like composting or reducing single-use plastics, to win a prize in the challenge. Lindsay would also see HAB branding at her local Whole Foods grocery store near the avocado section, promoting HAB's new mission to be America's most sustainable fruit. And lastly, she'll be encouraged to download the HAB avocado tracker that you see here, which traces where her avocados came from and how HAB is helping farmers like Carlos to tie it all together. I'll now pass it over to Che to share some of the implications of our recommended solutions.
Thank you, Susie, for sharing. So as HAP is a nonprofit organization, we wanted to keep costs relatively low. We broke out costs for the solutions into the two phases and believe each solution can complement your existing budget strategies. For phase one, we have a four-pronged approach to support farmers by expanding the resources and research you're providing and guiding them through the process of applying for a relevant certificate. We recommend hiring a farmer communications lead and a farmer certification lead for a total of $100,000 per year. To enable the microloan partnership with Kiva, we recommend an initial investment of $50,000 and eventually an expansion to funding a small percentage of each farmer's loan request to further support this community. Lastly, to promote the transparent supply chains, we recommend investing around $150,000 to pilot an avocado program with IBESCC 360, the blockchain supply chain software as a service platform. For phase two, we kept costs low by doing creative swaps of existing advertising strategies. Our upper funnel program includes new creative for TV, out of home, and digital ads that comes in at $250,000. For our mid-funnel marketing strategy of social media influencers, we can launch a program at scale at around $75,000. Lastly, for the lower funnel covering strategies, such as the app and in-store merchandise, we believe this can come in at just under $100,000. We also want to address potential risks associated with our solution that should not be neglected. As shown in the graph to the right, quinoa suffered a drop in interest in 2014 as a result of human rights concerns surrounding its production. As a result, consumer interest plateaued and has not regained its growth momentum. Which brings us back to our solutions. In terms of ethical risks, this includes potential abuse to our direct support to farmers and resistance from farmers with the complexity of initial implementations. We can address this by minimizing pain points for farmers' adaptation, along with implementing audit practices in our solution. While legal risks are not high for our solutions, we recognize that navigating through multiple jurisdictions to ensure a transparent supply chain, along with gathering local government support to reduce environmental impacts, will be time-consuming. However, we do not see any other constraints in the near future. Financially, there is some degree of risk with our solution to promote an understanding of sustainability issues surrounding avocados. While this may change market perception and cause a short-term demand drop, we believe consumers will ultimately recognize HAP's effort in ensuring avocado sustainability and ultimately lead to a long-term demand gain, which leads to our conclusion.
Thanks, Che. Even with those risks, however, we believe there's still hope to make avocados America's most sustainable fruit. To recap, avocado popularity has skyrocketed over the past 15 years due to social media virality and trends. With that increase in popularity, however, have come economical, legal, and financial impact, including deforestation, water overconsumption, and the increase of cartel violence. To mitigate these issues, we will take the popularity of avocados and use it to change the message. We recommend Haas Avocado Board implement a farmer-focused program and a consumer-focused program. With those solutions in place, we believe not only can Haas Avocado Board make avocados America's #1 fruit, but also make it the most sustainable one too. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So at this point, we appreciate the presentation from the organization that's in front of us, Sound Solutions. We are at the point where we want to ask some questions of you. And so I'll start a few and then we'll go to the rest of our judges. So the first question that I wanted to inquire upon you was around both the legal and the ethical dimensions of the problem as described. And so I was wondering if you can just kind of recap again, what is I think what I hear is that there are no solid legal basis for change based on the government's stance in Mexico. for the most part, is what I thought I heard. So I want to understand more. Is it a fact then that there are no legal consequences for this activity? Number two, the ethical dimension, trying to really capture the essence of the key points around the ethical challenges. So we clearly can hear, the 3 points around violence. We heard around deforestation and then water consumption, overconsumption. So that's ethical and it relates to the sustainable development goals, but just a bit more of a clear, concise response to both the ethical and the legal dimensions of the problem. If you could help me with that a little bit more.
Yes, absolutely. Thanks for those questions, Joe. So starting with your legal question. So there are right now no laws that are regulating the industry. So the two laws that I mentioned are one that's incentivizing farmers to farm avocados, and the other one is trying to limit deforestation through that permit. But there's no overall standards or regulations within the country that are focused on avocados. And that is probably partly due to the rapid increase in the past 10 years and how much they're producing. And so maybe those regulations haven't caught up, or maybe they're not in the best interest of the Mexican government, as avocados have now risen to be the second highest agricultural earner in the country behind the tomato. So that might be why we're not seeing any laws to address this. And because there's an absence of legal action, it's meant that NGOs and watchdog organizations are stepping in. So there are different organizations that are trying to monitor and quantify how much deforestation is happening, and are really ringing those alarm bells on the international scale of how this is going, already has and will have significant impacts on the communities themselves. And I think that's where that sort of transitions into the ethical piece of if we're sort of looking at like who benefits and who harms, and if there's a justification there, the rate at which production is expanding in Mexico, and you can't even meet the demand in the United States, is allowing there to be this unethical situation where you and I get the advantage of, we have avocados in the grocery store, we have them year round, we are benefiting from that. But because of a lack of any legal structure or international pressure, it's meaning that people in these communities are going to have significant impacts in the future, where they're going to cut down all of their forests, they're going to use all of their water, and so that's like the environmental piece that will actually have harm on the human piece as well. And then because of the lack of sort of any regulations or international pressure, it's also allowing this to be a vacuum for cartels to come in, so that we might be, your avocado from the store could be an illegal avocado that was hundreds of trees were cut down to produce it, and maybe it was free labor from farmers that were forced to work in that field or forced to pay protection fees. And so that unethical piece, I guess, for me, is that is the benefit to me to have an avocado, plenty of avocados, really worth the impact to those individuals and those communities.
Okay, thank you, Teresa. All right, so Gail, David, Daniel, Q&A, comments, thoughts?
Quick question, I'll jump in first. This is Daniel, by the way. You talked a little bit about the human impact related to the deforestation or soil degradation and fatalities. What's the, and from an ethical perspective, what's the improvement with these solutions as it relates to fatalities or human impact?
I can jump in, and I would love for the other team to back me up as well here. When it comes to the solutions in terms of the certificate programs, what we've found from the Rainforest Alliance certification, just because that one has been kind of lauded as the the best one by comparison. We don't have it in terms of the human fatality piece, but what we are seeing is that there are clear improvements from just the requirements that it takes to get that Rainforest Alliance certificate, that it means that these farmers are implementing quite a bit of different tools, new processes. So for example, when we found for water protection, for example, 80% of farms that are certified have different, at least one water protection measure compared with 17% of non-certified farms. So that's just one example of these new measures are in place to then hopefully get rid of all of the future concerns, but I will let Teresa jump in with some more specifics on that.
Yeah, I was just going to say, so, you know, if you're looking at the points where we've talked about fatalities, that's been on the cartel side of cartel violence resulting in farmers and people in these communities being kidnapped and killed. And then I did also mention soil degradation has led to flooding, and the flooding hasn't been common in this area, and it has been increasing as the pine trees and other types of vegetation have been eliminated. And I think that's where the Rainforest Alliance certificate is addressing deforestation. So the goal would be like it's mitigating the risk of increased chances of flooding, which in the past few years have resulted in fatalities.
Thank you.
I can go next. This is Gail.
Thanks, Gail.
So I have quite a few questions. What is, things that you mentioned that I was not aware of is that this is contributing to seismic activity. I didn't realize that the cartels had time to distract them from drugs to be involved in the avocado industry. And so I was wondering where, and the one I found appalling was the 50 to 60,000 gallons of water to produce one avocado. And that doesn't even, that really doesn't compute for me. So my question is, what is the source of this information?
Yeah, great question. On that last statistic, it is 60 to 70 gallons of water.
Oh, 60 to
60,
70
sorry.
gallons.
Yeah,
Still
60
a lot.
to,
Okay.
yeah, 60 to 70 gallons for water to produce one piece of avocado fruit. In the region, so avocados are known for being
Water hogs?
Yes, yeah. So like compared to tomatoes, I think it's about 10 times as much water is needed. Compared to oranges, it's about 4 times as much. And there's estimated to be 9.5 billion liters of water used a day to produce avocados in Mexico. So there's a lot of concern even elsewhere in the world around the water consumption of avocado trees. In other parts like Chile, for example, there's no water left in the streams for the communities. We didn't focus on that because that's a much smaller portion of production or imports to the United States. But yeah, overall, avocados are known for consuming a lot of water. And this region is an alpine region, so it's mountainous. So there is water. And right now they're pulling from aquifers. And so this was from the World Economic Forum. They were looking at seismic activity in the area and saying that they're now drilling wells that are hundreds of feet deep to supply water to the avocado orchards. And so officials in this region are trying to make the connection that that is probably what is causing an increase in seismic activity.
Yeah, Mexico has a lot of seismic activity. Another question, this rainforest certification, where has this worked before? Has it, like, I think of forests and I'm thinking Brazil or Costa Rica. You noted that it has saved water when farmers have used rainforests, have obtained rainforest certification. So where has it worked?
It's all over the world for the Rainforest Alliance certificate. Most specifically, I was trying to figure out if it had been done for avocados specifically in Mexico. And what we did find is that in 2018, the Rainforest Alliance program did certify 900 acres in Jalisco, a different state that is also known for major avocado production. And so that was the first avocado production in Mexico at all. So this is a very new certificate piece for Mexico, and that's why we're recommending a lot of support for the farmers. As you can see, there's quite a lot of requirements to reach this certificate, and a lot of funds that will be needing, the farmers will need to qualify to do all of this great work to make their farms more sustainable. But it has been successful in terms of making the land more sustainable in the long run, and also increasing the net income of the farmers. I think on the next slide, we have some of the actual numbers here. And so this was some research that was done for cacao sales specifically, because they haven't done research specifically on avocados. But if we can take this and apply it in terms of what percentages we can expect, they did say if you're comparing certified farms versus non-certified, they were making $403 USD versus 113 for non-certified. So it is good for both the land and for the farmers in the longer run.
Do you know how this, I wasn't aware that you had implemented this, or that it was implemented in Jalisco. How did they obtain the farmers' buy-in, and how, I mean, you went over a lot of figures of different costs, but it wasn't clear to me if that really funded 80% of the cost, 50% of the cost for the farmer. What percent would this funding that you're proposing cover of costs, and how, maybe use Jalisco as an example, how did you garner farmers' buy-in, which I see as critical to make any program work?
Right. So I'll say that for the Jalisco piece, there wasn't specific research that was shared. However, we do know that there are a lot of community farming communities in Mexico, and it's actually, from what we've understood, it's great that the farmers are working together. So this 900 acres was not one farm, it was multiple farmers coming together in a community saying, we have all of this, we're gonna share best practices with each other and learn from one another. So this was actually something that the farmers chose to do as they're learning about all of the impacts and seeing what the long-term effects may be of this erosion and all of the pieces that Teresa mentioned. So it was very much farmer motivated, and that's something that I think is going to be important, as the farmers will need to do quite a bit of heavy lifting in order to get this certificate. So they will need to be the ones that are inspired by this. And so that's going to be where the education piece comes in of, hey, this is going to be better for both your land and for your wallet. So that's going to be the bigger piece on education. Transitioning to the cost piece, we've figured out from comparisons that it'll be different amounts based on the size of the farm, of course, but just taking one example, we think it'll be approximately up to 10,000 to get the machinery needed, implementing crop rotations, replanting, all of the pieces that are going to be needed to qualify, get that baseline. And then for the actual audit, that's going to be a one-time fee, 5,000, and then annually it drops much lower every subsequent year. And then what we did to determine the differential in the amount that they would make to do the cost benefit analysis, we figured out, based on what the research that has been published by the Rainforest Alliance, we figured out and if between the cacao farmers, what they were making before and after certifications, using that differential and percentage to apply it to the avocados, to see that there would be a definite benefits outweighing the costs here as they would now be making closer to 60K a year versus before closer to 16. So it is going to be a huge improvement in the longer run. They just need to get over that initial upfront payment, and that's where the Kiva microloans are coming in.
But the
answer your
microloan was
question?
like $5,000. Is that going to be enough?
So that was one example. That was just as we use Carlos, and he is a real person in Mexico in Michoacan, and he has only a small, I think it was 6 acres of land. So we used that as our example. And so he would need a smaller amount to make those updates and upgrades to his land. Whereas for other farmers, it may be more. So that was where we were thinking of a tiered approach, saying at this point, we want you to try to implement just the Kiva partnership, evangelize that to the farmers, and then use your great network in the US to say, hey, these are farmers looking for these loans to do this. And so getting consumers to help connect the dots to then fund those microloans. So right now at this point, we were saying just an initial amount to get that partnership with Kiva going. But in the longer run, if that ends up being successful, then that's where we would say, we would love for you to commit to doing a small percentage, paying a small percentage of each loan, and becoming a field partner, which has a few more steps. And then you're doing more of an investment in the longer run, but starting simple just to make sure we're getting this off the ground as a partnership.
I would key in on that benefit. Money talks. Okay.
100%.
Hi, David here. We talked about soil degradation. What alternatives to avocados are there in terms of crop rotation? Okay. And number 2, when we're talking about costs, it seems like the Jalisco project, if I can call it that, has been pretty successful. But how have the cartels reacted to this?
I can take that first question. So in talking about a different crop to utilize in the crop rotation, we didn't look into that information specifically. I think one thing we wanted to emphasize is we're not suggesting minimizing or deleting avocados from consumers' diets, but we do want to promote avocados, the awareness behind where it's coming from, and making sure that consumers are aware of the implications of their consumption, and making informed decisions about the food that they choose to eat. So we didn't really look at the options for farmers in terms of rotating crops and things like that, not being familiar on the farming side. But we did want to emphasize, especially with you, the Haas Avocado Board, that we don't want to detract from the main goal of making avocado the most popular fruit. Really, we just want to add to the goal by saying, let's make it the most popular, but also the most sustainable fruit.
Because it takes about 7 years for a mature avocado tree. So it's not, these programs can't be done overnight. What about the cartel issue and any research on that?
Yes, I can jump in here. So with the Jalisco farming, this is a piece that we do not have research on how the cartels were interacting with those farmers before and then after the certificate. But the piece where in our solution that we were trying to use to address the cartel issue was the transparent supply chain as a service platform, which is IBESCC 360. And so the piece there that we think would help the most is the fact that as soon as the process is completed and the avocados are weighed, checked for quality at the end of that supply chain, then it goes directly into a farmer account, a bank account. And so that is an automatic payment to the farmer. It's not cash. So this is our way that we think would deter the cartels, as they're not going to be knowing how much the farmers are receiving. And so therefore, it would be one piece to deter them from this. And then the other side of it is, hey, if the cartels are actually doing some of the avocado farming themselves, they're not going to be the ones that are going to go through all the effort of doing the Rainforest Alliance certificate. And so the farmers that do that extra step will be able to differentiate themselves and then stand out from the crowd. So those are the two pieces we were thinking about with the cartels, realizing it is a very complex issue.
And then my final question would be that you are our consultants, we're the board. Would you recommend that we initially start out in Jalisco, see how that program works, and then shift over to the other state? Because Jalisco seems to be working according to your research. And we're being asked to invest $725,000 in 2 phases.
I think that it should be Michoacan because this is really the biggest region for producing avocados. So, I mean, the focus on Michoacan is one, because it is far and above the biggest producing region, but two, I think it will really set the standard for the other regions. So no surprise, other regions in Mexico are also trying to get in on avocados. So Jalisco is actually the fastest growing region, but it's still really far behind. So really, like, I think that by starting in Michoacan, where they are a well-established region that is trading significant amounts with the United States, they're the place to sort of to put in some practices that right now they're seen as like the avocado region. So what they do, other regions are going to adopt. So I think to really have it be something that will impact all avocado farming in Mexico, it needs to start in the heart of where avocado farming is now, which is in Michoacan.
Thank you.
Any other questions from any of the other judges? Anything else, Gail or Daniel? If not, I just have one other question. It's a brief one. It's in your presentation. You spent quite a bit of time on the issue, and you described that prior to 1997, there was regulations against transporting avocados into the U.S. Can you just give us some education around what changed? Why did that change? What was the reason for the regulation to begin with, and what changed in 97 to make that change?
Yeah, and so Jamie, jump in here too. In 1997, there was it was like a boerworm, I believe, was in, but prior to 1997, there were boerworms in Mexican avocados. And so that was back before the 1950s even. And so there was this ban in place so that there wasn't, things coming into the US avocado market. And in 1997, they lifted that ban because it was declared they were free of this pest. And at that point, up until that point, avocados were just coming in the United States, were coming from California and Florida, and they were just a seasonal fruit. So only being grown a few months of the year. After 1997, by opening up the avocado market from Mexico, Mexico can grow year round. So there are 2 down months, it's June and July. And that's it. So that's why now we see avocados in the supermarket any time of the year, because this region is the only region in the world right now that is growing avocados year round. But yeah, the ban just had to do with a pest, and then that was lifted, and then obviously consumption has really skyrocketed since then.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Okay, so if there are no other questions, then we'll move.
I have one more. I just have one more
Go ahead,
question.
Gail. Please, Gail.
Can you show the slide, because I must have glazed over, where you brought up the Jalisco project?
We didn't actually bring it in the presentation, but we have this slide. If you go to, apologies, it's in the appendix.
That's okay.
Slide.
Well, the 900 acres of Jalisco, I just saw that one slide.
Yeah.
Yeah,
slide 38.
Let's see. Okay. Yeah, I guess I would really, because we're a substantial amount of money that the board is being asked to consider. and it's quite different. I would really hone in on, that Jalisco worked really well, I guess, because that would give me a lot of comfort that this has actually even been tried in Mexico and worked. So I think, as I would expect, you would want to use this to convince other farmers as well. So anyway, that's where I wanted to see where you had brought it up.
I think that's great, Gail. You transitioning into our next phases, which is giving some recommendations, some counsel, some guidance and support. But before we do that, we want to thank you very much. We know how hard you work to pull together the slides and your presentation. So we want to thank you for just, again, all the hard work in getting to this point today. And so now we're no longer your board. We're taking our ties off, and now we're just at the point where we want to provide, a little bit of feedback and guidance and perspective to help guide you as you journey on to your next presentation. So I'll just start off a bit. I think your topic was extremely challenging. It's difficult to outline the legal aspects as well as the ethical aspects of a difficult challenge around the importance of avocados and the importance of sustainability and the importance of people, and it's just difficult to kind of pinpoint and then articulate in a way that we can create a sort of a business case for action. Having said that, though, we can feel and sense your passion and your commitment, and I just love our generation. They're so committed to goodness in the future. And so we feel that and love that, quite honestly. I would say, some of the coaching that I would provide is you did spend quite a bit of time on the background, I think, you were a little over time. And so it's important to manage that time appropriately so that we get the main message. I would just sort of mention that a bit. The solutions were effective in terms of focusing on, actual producers and then the consumers. And I would say, to me, trying to, as you go into your next few presentations, you're going to have a lot less time. And so trying to find a succinct message, which to me felt like, if, I'm a board of members of a company that's entire supply chain is based on avocados. And what I hear is that the supply chain that I have is not sustainable. It's just not it's going to break down. And that puts me at extreme risk. And so really, what's the angle to resolve that, both short-term and long-term, and reduce our risks is, I think, a key business aspect of where I think the direction should be to cause motivation. Knowing that there's no laws that I can rely on, knowing that there's, the ethical dilemma is challenging. And I'm also concerned, I heard it in the presentation, but I'm also concerned that me going to my consumers and being transparent about all this actually reduces my marketing and my sales effort, which I'm all about selling as much as I can in terms of avocados. So it's a challenge. So I'll pause there, and Gail and David, Daniel, any other feedback for the team would be helpful. Thank you.
Well, I thought it was great. It's such a unique challenge that we're all faced with, and I eat avocados all the time. So it's like you don't think about the things that happen behind the story. And I loved how you could connect the avocado back to the origins for people, and I think that is relevant today. I agree with Joe on some of the things that he mentioned. The only thing I would think about is getting to the bottom line up front. Rather than spending so much time in the background, what's the solution and how do we work through the solution? And it's such a tough thing because that's the supply chain is avocados, and like you said, you're saying there's a problem with the supply chain, and that's our number one product. So as a board, it's hard to swallow, but I think you did a great job.
I was amazed by the amount of research that went in to your presentation. I had the advantage of looking at one of the participants' screens with all of the PowerPoint presentations. That in itself just shows how much activity really went into your presentation, your research. Like my colleagues, I was not aware of the complexities of the avocado. In fact, we'll probably go shopping this afternoon, and if they're there, we'll probably buy some of our own avocados. I agree with Joe. I was getting a little nervous in terms of time about the background. I think the background is very important. but if you can condense that, that would be helpful. The financials, which is something I usually zero in on. I think that if we were the board, I think we would want to think about Jalisco, I don't speak Spanish, but anyway, as maybe zeroing in on that, because it is the second largest producer. That state is the second largest producer of avocados in Mexico, according to one of your charts. It is extremely smaller than the other one. But I think we can start on safe ground with a program and just kind of zero in on one particular state where it's working. I think our company is better off. But I'm just amazed at the amount of research. I thought you had excellent presentation skills. Just overall, I think it was well done.
I thought it was very well done. And one of the reasons I like being a judge is because I always learn things from the students. And so I am much more educated at this point. I would tell you that I would look at the questions people asked, because the questions will tell you maybe things that weren't as clear to us. And so maybe those are things you could hone into. Being a career banker, I tend to look at numbers a lot. So I would hammer home that benefit of 60,000 versus 16,000, because that's going to be a big point to convince the farmers. And I think getting farmer buy-in is absolutely key to the success of the program. And I would have hammered more on Jalisco. Yes, I do speak Spanish. And because if it was successful there, that kind of what I think would convince any board that it can be successful elsewhere. And so those are kind of two key points I would hammer on. I mean, that there has been success gives one hope that it can be successful in another state as well, and in Michoacan. And I liked when I asked about the question about how much water it takes. I don't remember you mentioning before, maybe you did and I just glossed over it. And that was that the water it brings it home 10 times tomatoes and 4 times oranges. It just gives me more clarification and a way to measure it as how big that is. So maybe those are just a couple of points. You had the information, I would just hone in on them maybe a little bit more, because I think those are impactful statements that help convince your audience.
Okay, so again, I think you hear that how much we appreciate, again, your tremendous hard work and dedication around a difficult topic. And I get points for difficult topics. So great job, I think, in terms of where you're at.
And you made us aware. We'll be thinking about this when we buy avocados. So you educated us. So thank you for that. Or for me anyway.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you
Have
so
a good
much.
rest of your day.